entrepreneur, I think, conjures up a certain image. All three of you are undeniably charismatic. You've mentioned, Megan, I think you mentioned bravery, Creel, decisionship, and I think a certain impatience. Nic, a sense of purpose. But I wonder what the qualities are that guarantee the success of an entrepreneur. Are they innate? I'm sure you believe they can be taught. I remember interviewing a singing teacher of the most gorgeous choir in children's choir in Brisbane, and she said to me, look, everyone can learn to sing. Can everyone learn to be an entrepreneur? Do you want to start, Creel?
Well, I'm a little bit biased that way, and I think when people say it can't be trained, I think they mean the attributes. You do need drive, you need resilience, you need these courage, bravery, those sort of things. But the actual skills of entrepreneurship, how to be a better entrepreneur, you have to be able to train. Otherwise, 5 out of 80% of businesses wouldn't go bust in the first 5 years. There's got to be a better answer. Is what I'd say to that.
Yeah, Megan, is it innate or something that one can learn?
I think from my perspective, it was innate. I was informed by my father being a businessman, and so many smart people have asked me over the years, I could never do, or said to me, I could never do that, and they're far smarter than I am, and they could do it, but my upbringing informed my decisions, and it's not least of all because I didn't actually want to get a job in corporate, and I didn't think they would give me a job as well. But I think one can learn. It's hard to learn an attitude. It's easy to be taught skills. So if one has the right attitude, then we can teach them. And Creel's doing that with children, which is fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, Nic, do you meet people who have that spark that says to you, yes, this is someone who can change the world?
I think yes, and it's hard to recognise because I think it's so much about them. I think for me, I went through school and failed everything. I just failed, and I was very dyslexic, and I didn't know it, and so I went to one of the schools where if they kept hitting you hard enough, they thought that would help. It didn't. One of the things it did make me is quite resilient, and it also meant that I've got to do it differently. And my parents were entrepreneurs, so I think I'm in this space. I do think that there are skills attached to it, but I certainly think there is, there's a desire. I think one of the things that you said too that made me think is that I think the thing that's made us interesting, made my time in the last 8 years interesting, is actually not seeing it as being about success, but seeing about taking a risk and wanting to do it differently. Everything I've done over the last 20 years, it seems to me, has been at the forefront. Sometimes we've been too early, and I've seen others being very successful, make money, but we were part of it. And I think really getting to celebrate your contribution to the bit that you bring and going, well, bugger it, they got really rich off that. But actually, and that can really upset you. So I think actually just being part of the change.
I wanted to ask about timing, actually, and you just raised there. I think if you've read Malcolm Gladwell's book, The Outliers, part of his hypothesis about uber successful people is very much about being, in the right moment in time. For each of you, to what extent do you think that timing played a key hand in your success?
Well, we were probably a bit different to what Megan, because Megan obviously was there at an amazing time in the technology thing. We started one of our businesses in an industry too early, and so we got the timing all wrong. We were 5 years too early, and we paid dearly for that. So sometimes it's not about being at the forefront. There's that whole adage of being at the leading edge, not the bleeding edge. So I don't know what you think about that, because you were obviously fairly close to the bleeding edge, I imagine.
Yeah, we were, and we were, we could be informed by people's mistakes as well. So we had that benefit, and so many businesses, I think, go under just with bad timing. It's not bad management, not a bad concept, bad timing, and also not aligned investment. We actually chose our investors who understood us. It's like choosing a boyfriend just because he likes you. You don't go, just take on any money that's offered. You choose the right. So I think it's actually, there's luck, a lot of luck involved, and it's actually making the right decisions early on.
And for you, Nic, thinking about Easy Being Green in 2004, and then we had Al Gore's An Inconvenient Truth in 2006, and suddenly climate change and the thing that you were passionate about was at the top of the agenda.
So the timing was great, and we started this business and it took off, and we were doing things globally, and people used to say, get on the plane, what are you doing? I do mass energy efficiency campaigns, and we create carbon credits. They go, God, that must be great. And everyone says that must be great, but we've not made huge amounts of money. And 2 years ago, when we were going to have 6 million credits to sell, the price of a carbon credit was €15. Today it's 3.42. I'm just to go and sell next week 6 million, and I have to sell them next week. I can't wait until 2 years' time. So actually, it's not a great time in terms of the profitability. It's an extraordinary great time in terms of steering the way that carbon credits will change the way people care for people in Africa and developing countries. I'm really proud of that. I'm not going to be seeing the hundreds of millions of euros that we all would have got to play with. But I thought we would.
Yeah. Sorry, Megan.
So if I could just add, I think I've started 2 companies in times of financial hardship too, and I think that's an opportunity. People would say you're mad, but it makes you very keen with money, makes you very cautious, it makes you inventive and creative. So in that respect, even if you're experiencing a bad time, you can still create something fantastic.
The timing of the sale of your business was pretty darn good, wasn't it?
Well, we sold 7 days before Bear Stearns crumbled, which sort of started the global financial crisis. And when 90% of your business is in financial services, it was pretty good. But I was actually thinking, when you were talking about the dot-com boom, I had this flashback to we had all these private equity managers trying to raise a huge amount of capital, which we were never successful at doing. But we got told by this one venture capitalist that we weren't sexy enough. And sort of like saying that you're too ugly to have a girlfriend or something. And all the other businesses they invested into, they lost huge amounts of money. But we went on. That's why we decided then we would never have external capital in our business. So timing was sort of worked to our advantage, I guess, in that respect.
Yeah. I mean, how much do you need a lot of capital? I mean, I said in my introduction, you started with 5,000. Megan started with £800,000. You were talking, $50 million on light bulbs. I mean, how much does it take to run with a great idea?
Well, I think it's changing. I think to be, like we started our business, 15 years ago, it's hard. To produce a brochure used to cost like $12,000. These days you don't need a brochure. In fact, I was in Silicon Valley the other day and I handed over a business card and people were going, what's that? You can have a global business without really much money at all these days. So I think it doesn't take much. In fact, I think it's better. The reason why a lot of those dot-com companies failed is they raised huge amounts of money, spent it on all the wrong stuff.
As Megan was saying, being respectful of that investment.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We're almost out of time, but I did want to ask what's next for each of you?
Well, I've vowed not to captain Australia in the elephant polo ever again. The horse polo there's probably some horse polo players in the room. It's sort of like pretty posh, right?
Yep.
Elephant polo. We didn't fit in, and we didn't actually win either. But so there ended my elephant polo dreams. But like Nic, I have massive ambitions around social entrepreneurship and even getting more people into business. I think is really, and changing kids' views that it's an opportunity. It's a career path that they might not have thought before.
What's next for you, Megan?
I've gone from the sublime to the ridiculous, from being right at the bottom. I'm now just happily joined a board, a Fitted for Work charity, which I'm thrilled about. I'm talking to some other boards. I'm speaking, I'm consulting, and I'm mentoring a number of women. And I have a business idea or two, which I'm looking forward to doing. But at the moment, I'm enjoying
your rising stocks with your children. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's funny. When I told my daughter that I was going off to see her teacher, my 9-year-old daughter, she said first she wanted to know what we were going to talk about, but then what she really wanted to know was, Mummy, you're not going to use your news reading voice, are you? And Nic, what sort of risk taking is on the agenda for you?
I think I love the social enterprise stuff. I just wrote a book about it, and I love it. And I don't imagine not doing deals. But I'm actually have been preparing to get out of my business, and I'm going to audition at the VCA to do either music theatre or performing arts in October. So I had yesterday my first ballet lesson ever, and I can tell you that. There's an egg here that I'm holding, and my point is crap. But, and I did a jazz class earlier in the week where there was 23, 25-year-olds that could all dance, and I felt like the little fat fella in the corner that was rolling around. But
that's risky. That's very risky.
I'm excited.
That's brave.
Wonderful. Well, look, if we had more time, I'd love to ask you about how corporations can be more entrepreneurial and what the future is. for corporations who don't embrace entrepreneurship. If you can answer that question in 30 seconds, you're welcome to have a tilt at it.
I think there need to be more entrepreneurial representation on boards. I think that's where it could start as well. They seem to be quite stricken by governance and finance at the moment, and to have that entrepreneurial spirit, I also think within organisations it should be celebrated, and acknowledged. But that means letting people run with things, letting people, empowering your staff to run with their ideas and develop them.
And failure, I think, is if corporates can realise that the entrepreneurs or the entrepreneurs within their business are allowed to fail, rather than lose their job if something fails, they will become more innovative. And I think we don't have a culture, particularly in this country, of allowing things to fail. That's what we teach these kids, is it's okay to fail. You know, your business makes $500, yours made $30. It's okay, learn from it.
And the way to create that is to have real relationships. So you actually have to invest in saying, I understand this person, I understand the risk they want to take, I'm going to join them in the risk, I'm not going to control them, I'm going to let them go, I'll box off the bit they can risk so we don't kill the company. But I'm actually going to let them, and I'm going to buy them the champagne. I mean, one of the things is we have champagne moments, but we buy the most expensive champagne. It's absolutely true. The most expensive champagne has been for the failures. You know, well done for having a crack.
Well, that's an interesting way to
Let's go have expensive champagne. Come on.
Indeed, ladies and gentlemen, would you please thank Nic Frances, Megan Quinn and Creel Price.